go!
Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons. If you
are interested in becoming a patron,
I literally just stole your bit there.
You did. You fucked me. You really fucked me. I get to say two things. No, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogamespodcast. Dude of the week is Saruman 209.
Thank you, Saruman, the White Wizard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people would be happy to be supported by Saruman, but we definitely are. We're down with it. Is this pre-Going Evil? Saruman, you got to let us know, are you leading an army of Urukai, or
are we talking about Saruman the White or Saruman the Many-Colored?
Fair.
That's a
deep
really
cut.
Yes.
Yeah, that's deep cut. You did it.
Yeah.
You did the thing. You lost everybody. You finally dove into Lord of the Rings lore. But as well as our patrons, we have a sponsor to thank, Manscaped. And every time we talk about Manscaped, I like to tell a real story, and this one makes me look like an idiot. So it's double fun.
I don't know. I thought you were gonna say proud, but okay.
I mean, it also makes me kind of proud, but, you know, I have to admit, in order to tell this story, I have to admit that, like, one, in my office at work, I have dumbbells. I'm 100% that basic bitch, you know, who's sitting there doing, like, curls or shit on their breaks. Yeah, that's me. I'm there doing it. Anyway, I worked out once at lunch, and I went in and changed, and I had the Manscaped, like, goodie bag with me. And I decided to try that crop reviver. Like, we've talked about crop preserver and shit, but I hadn't actually tried in earnest crop reviver, and I was like, well, I can't shower. Did a little whore's bath, you know?
Yeah.
Wipe down. I had like backpacking wipes and stuff. And I decided to do a little spray of that, and it smells pretty good. And then when I was walking out of the bathroom after changing, my boss was walking into the bathroom, and he was like, oh, it smells great in here. And without thinking about it, I just turned around and went, yeah, that's my balls.
Yes, your balls smell amazing.
A little bit awkward silence later. I'm back in my office just like, that didn't happen. We're not going to talk about that. We're never going to reference it. My boss said nothing. He just accepted that I yelled in the middle of an office, yeah, that's my balls.
He was lost in Cloud 9 dreaming about your balls and how great they smell.
God, I hope so. Finally, the raise I deserve. Well, you know that Andrew, he's got great balls.
Great smelling balls. And your balls can smell great, too.
Yeah.
You go to manscaped.com.
And use the code YoVG, all caps, 20% off, and free shipping worldwide.
Yeah, and then they are good things. Because, again, they sent us some product for us to test before we...
the performance package.
So that was actually nice. We had a period of time where we were actually able to use this stuff ourselves. So it's like, yeah, I can come here and tell you it does make your balls smell great. It does do its job. It's great because it's even got a little flashlight on it. So like you don't have to worry about like, you know, losing any side. You can use it. It's waterproof, which I think you tested once.
Yeah, I finally tested that. I worked up the balls to do that. It's kind of, I feel like it's the least advertised thing in the package, and it's the thing I'm most excited about because it doesn't hurt to use, and it's the like nose and ear trimmer that they give you with the performance package. I have one of those, but it like yanks nose hairs out when you use the thing. This is like way more gentle, so I have a fresh nose too, unless it's meant for like, I don't know, your asshole hair, but I don't think it is. I think it's for the nose.
Yeah, I don't know. It's for your nose, and yeah, you can have a fresh nose, almost as fresh as your balls.
Almost as fresh, probably not as fresh, but almost. You'll be able to smell your balls better.
Exactly, you want that clean nose to smell those clean gonads.
Speaking about the balls on those kids, there's a couple of things that have happened. One that you're sort of right to call out, but like you feel is weird that no one's calling it out. And then another thing is that RE4 VR is A bit of a letdown. Who could have called that?
Well, it's a weird thing because like the reviews are coming in pretty good, right? Like it's actually got fairly good, but like I mean, a lot of them were from outlets that specifically deal with just VR
VR.
games. So I was like, okay, whatever about that.
Okay, but is it like a VR port of the Wii version? Because that would
It
make
is
the
a
most sense.
so it's actually a full ground up remake. Um,
Oh shit! Floaty hands and
cut
everything, huh?
yeah. So Armature Studios, you know, there are a lot of ex retro people. They've done a lot of stuff over the years, but they haven't really. I think they started to dive into VR a couple of years ago. Anyways, they decided they wanted to do VR RE4, but they basically had to do it from the ground up. I think it's made in Unity. It's either Unity or Unreal, but I think it's Unity. So it's like it's a full. They fully had to go in and just redo everything, which
Huh.
is crazy. But they were pretty adamant about being super faithful to the look, the feel, and the level design. So like, it's funny that it technically is a full on remake, but it's extremely faithful to the original look and level design and enemy encounters, like which is it's that to me is just so weird actually, that part of it,
Well,
because it's like
so I guess my
the
question is they updated all the graphics. It's all
kind of like
oh no, so
it,
it's like it's GameCube graphics in VR. You're
it,
closer to the action.
it's weird because they definitely changed some textures, updated some stuff. But on the other hand, it's like it's nowhere near as say insanely in depth as that fan made RE4 HD mod. It's like it doesn't look quite as good as that. Actually,
Okay.
I wouldn't say it looks. Actually, I'd say it's pretty far back. It's like in this weird middle ground between GameCube and RE4 HD mod. Um, but
I don't
but
know how I
anyways,
feel about that.
the weirdest thing to me, what I was trying to say, like the weirdest thing to me is that like even the glowing reviews talk about how like certain enemy encounters and boss encounters don't translate well to VR. Like bosses become like dirt easy because you can move and shoot in this game, like to your heart's content.
Hmm.
Um, like because you have like it's just free form. So um, that's that's weird to me that they would okay. So it's like they're remaking the game from the ground up and they make sure everything is kind of the same as it was, even if that is basically it's I don't know if I'd say detrimental, but it's kind of like how RE4 Wii Edition was kind of accused of being way too easy because of how quickly you could just headshot everything really fast.
Yeah, I
And
mean this is going to be easy. That's what I was getting at.
yeah, so that's and you hard mode is not unlocked. You don't get professional until you beat the game. Um, and some people were saying like this makes the game really easy, um, especially if you're proficient. Else, which is weird because I think probably the weird, you know, one of the most conflicting things I hear in the review is that it's really not meant to be your, you know, your first time in RE4. It's not, you know, it's probably not the best way to experience RE4 for the very first time if you're a complete virgin at it, right?
Huh. Yeah. Oh well, I could see that. I could see that you wouldn't get the full experience, but you could also say the same thing about the Wii version of RE4. You know what I mean? Like it's I wouldn't say you're getting the best version with the Wii version.
Mm, mm, well, I don't know if I agree with that, actually.
You love the
Um,
Wii version. I know you do,
I
but
do,
still.
but you can also just play with a GameCube controller on the Wii version. So you could play it how it's intended to be played, or you could play it the other way. Like it's kind of the options kind of there, right?
And you love options.
Yeah, and in this case, it's like okay, so anytime Leon kicks someone, it goes into a third person camera. Like you don't have VR, it goes out of VR, it puts just like you know a screen in front of your face, right?
Yeah, because they don't want you to throw up.
Right. And they say that can kind of disorient the shit out of you in the middle of something, especially when it zooms back into VR. Certain cutscenes and QTEs are still just, you know, in a little boxed window. So there's a little bit of like weirdness and jank, VR jank to it because it's you know, it's not a game that had VR was ever thought of when it was made. So like basically like it works, but there are some quirks that come with it that and there's a lot of immersion breaking shit like that happens because of it.
Hmm.
Um so
Yeah,
that's
I
why like
suppose any QTE is going to be really hard to do in
yeah,
VR.
so that's why you get like this weird conflicting thing where it's like, hey, this is a really good way to experience the game. Hey, this should not be your first time playing the game. You should definitely try to play this as it was original. I'm like, okay, well, all right. That's weird. I think if you've never played RE4, what are you doing? Just go get it. Get the PC version if you can.
It's on
Um,
everything. You'll
it's
be
on
able to get it.
everything.
Yeah.
You can get the PC version. Then there's a really good, like easy to use mod that makes it look really, really good.
I,
And
s-
that's
I sort of doubt there's anybody listening that hasn't played it because we literally won't shut the fuck up about it. But it's like imagining there's somebody that listens that hasn't played Zelda before. Like we talk about it too much. If they're not
okay.
convinced by now,
I think okay. Other than for me, I mean, I watched a couple of the reviews this morning, and I be honest, like it looks janky and weird to me. I don't think I'd enjoy playing the game that way. I think I'd get a kick out of about 15, maybe 30 minutes of it, and then I'd be like, then I'd be fucking done with it. It does not look like the perfectly paced stop and pop game that it was designed to be on the GameCube. It just looks like it would get annoying after a while.
yeah,
Personally, that's personal. But I think the real honest to God, I think the worst criticism I can level at this game is not, and it's not it's not what you might think I'm going to say it is. It's the fact that like, okay, VR is like this great sort of, way to experience things, especially in a very quick to play arcade like setting, right?
yeah.
There's no mercenaries mode. There's no bonus options. There's no unlockables, so to speak, in
Yeah,
this
I
version
know
of the game.
you love your.
And I'm like, man, like if anything, you should have at least just had mercenaries. Like I get not having separate ways. I get not having assignment Ada, but like, what? No
Yeah,
mercenaries mode?
I'd rather have the other two over mercenaries. Like I don't give that much of a shit about
Oh my god,
mercenaries.
but like for VR, this feels like you should like if maybe they're planning this, but like I feel like you could sell just the mercenaries mode for like $15, on its own.
Maybe was it that popular though? Was the mercenary mode that
Absolutely.
fucking?
Yes, absolutely. Even Capcom even released a game called The Mercenaries 3D on the 3DS launch. So,
Touche.
I mean,
Yeah.
like,
I don't know. I guess I
I
just
don't
like
get
I
it.
didn't. I liked it. I just didn't like love it as much as I guess. As well, you and Mike have like a thing for it.
Yeah, I mean,
You
I love
love
Mercenaries,
it.
but I'm just saying that it's like for VR, for a really quick play kind of thing, or something where you don't have to worry about a lot of like I have to sit here and invest myself for hours at a time. Like just okay, let me just have like a good like fun romp through the village. Like VR seems like such a perfect thing to have, and they don't have it. That to me makes no sense
Yeah, that's fair.
whatsoever. There is the other elephant in the room, and we've been avoiding it. The game is censored, I guess you could say. I don't really like to use that term, censored, but
Censored how? What does censored mean for the game?
so they cut the line where Lewis, like says, comments on Ashley's boobs. That line's just cut out of the game, and apparently it's a really awkward scene now with the way the editing is. Ashley does no longer makes any pass at Leon at the end of the game. They cut the line about overtime out. I have seen that, and it does edit much more smoothly. I don't know if Leon hitting on Hunnigan is still in the game. I almost imagine not at this point.
Okay, the
So
commenting on her boobs thing, all right, but like, why did they cut
also,
these things out?
well, according to here's where I want to say the funniest part about it. Also, you can't look up Ashley's skirt. I guess you can. She just doesn't have any reaction anymore. Because I mean, if you leave her on top of a fucking, up top of a ladder and you look up in VR, you're probably just going to see whatever. But like, she doesn't chide you anymore. She doesn't get mad at you.
It's just a fucking middle finger now under there.
The funniest part to me was that a Facebook spokesperson told IGN that the game has been, updated for modern sensibilities. And I'm like, yeah, because here's the thing, Facebook funded this game. It is a Quest 2 exclusive. Cannot play
Wow.
on Quest 1, cannot play on Rift. It is a Quest 2 exclusive game. And because they're part of the funding, and I just find it really, really fucking funny that a Facebook spokesperson is trying to take the moral high ground here.
Have we become that sensitive?
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't really care personally. Personally, I don't care about like these weird lines being cut because I have no desire to fucking play this game, which only works on one specific VR headset that you have to sign up to Facebook and make a Facebook account, and you have to agree to their terms of service, which not only is like tracking your history, but it tracks your head movement, tracks like your focus points, does all this other shit that it sends back. And Facebook, of all people, is sitting there trying to argue moral high ground. Like, please fucking piss right off with that.
All to avoid 6 people on Tumblr and Twitter that are going to get into a fucking tizzy over it.
People are going to be stupid and mad about this thing, and I don't care about this content being in the game or not, especially for a fact of it's a version of a game I'm never going to fucking play.
Yeah, no,
but
that's fine. I mean, I don't really like. It's not like I was racing out like, finally, I will get to jerk off while wearing a headset. Like, it's not like I was super amped for it or anything. It just seems like such a dumb. It's not like it was like hyper detailed. Fucking,
yeah. Oh, like okay, like to me, like the most.
It's not hentai.
The most. I think the Lewis line is like it kind of makes sense. Just because it's just Lewis coming down and just being a fucking creep, in which he is at no point else is he a creep. He said he was quite the ladies' man at one point to Leon early on, but that's kind of it. Like it doesn't mean anything. So it's like, yeah, he just comes down and just says, "Oh, you got boobs." It's like, yeah, okay, sure. That line is really weird. That being gone is really not much of a loss. Although apparently does make Ashley look weirdly angry and upset over nothing with the way they cut the scene.
Yeah, so I guess now she's just mad.
Yeah, she's just mad. But yeah, like I don't understand. To me, one thing I don't understand the overtime line being like oh, like that was outdated or whatever. I'm like, it's a 20-year-old hitting on a 27-year-old, like whatever. Like all she does is it's not even that explicit. She just says, "Hey, you want to come back to my place?" He says, "No." I don't understand why that. If we want to argue about how non-issue some of the stuff is, I would say the overtime line is like, I don't understand why that was an issue at all.
Yeah, because I mean, I had forgotten how old Ashley was. For some reason, I thought she was like finishing college or something, so I thought she was like 22, 23.
Yeah, she's 20, I think, officially.
Yeah, no. We all know that 20-year-old girls never get horny, and it's only 27-year-old dudes who are horny. And
that's the weird thing, too, is because like she puts the offer, he says no.
A serious reversal.
And she just literally says, doesn't, her line is literally, somehow I thought you said that, but it doesn't hurt to ask, that's it. That's it. It is not explicit or weird or raunchy or anything. It's just kind of like, hey, you want to come back to my place? Nah. Okay. Apparently that's too much now. That's the one thing. Like now, as far as the skirt thing goes, I'm like, whatever. If at the time, I don't think it's that deviant to like if you were to aim up at Ashley before she literally like chides you for doing it. I feel like that's more this developers like calling out the gamers for being horny. But it's weird that's still, that doesn't matter. It's like you shouldn't have put it in the game. It's like there's a guy, JP Kellums. I'm calling his name out because fuck him.
We're gonna call him that because that's his name and fuck him.
He used to work for Platinum Games and now he works for fucking EA on the Madden franchise in Florida. And therefore there's the big fuck him part where he was really upset to learn that there was a trophy or a hidden stat counter in Nier that kept track of the times you blew off 2B and 9S's shorts and skirts, and how many times you tried to look up it.
Hell yeah.
And he says, I would have fought against that. Like that's really inappropriate. I'm like, oh yeah, Mr. White guy with his profile picture on a fucking yacht, working for the NFL of all companies, going to sit there and tell you what's, not morally, right or wrong about something. Shut the fuck up.
I don't know. Whatever. I don't know, like, I'm not gonna try and take some moral high ground and be like, no, you know what, I am. That guy's an asshole. Fuck him. Whatever. You're getting mad over something that is harmless.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also
and you're
very human.
and you live in a fucking glass ass house when you work for EA in the NFL, and you want to talk about moral high grounds. Jesus.
But it's like it's also it's just like it's human. I don't like even dogs get horny. I don't know what the fuck. Like I don't know. It's just such a weird thing to me. I guess to like moralize.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, we've addressed it. I don't personally care. I don't think I don't. And the thing is, we're pretty fairly familiar. I mean, we're really familiar with the game. We're pretty up in the community of RE people. I've never really heard of people complaining about RE4. Um, those lines in particular. I've never really heard anyone whining about those lines before
Because they're
uh,
silly. They're silly
yeah,
lines. The whole fucking game is silly.
yeah. The whole game is silly.
Man, I have you ever gone on Twitter and just searched John Hughes?
No.
I'll do that sometime. It's just Gen Z finding John Hughes movies and realizing how fucking crazy 80s and 90s movies were.
Yeah.
But especially 80s movies.
But I feel
Yeah.
like, okay, like we want to talk about that. Like you want to talk about John Hughes and stuff like that shit was way, I would say way more problematic
Hell
uh
yeah.
than Lewis making an inappropriate comment and getting yelled at for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
and then, a fully adult woman, asking a dude to come over and he says no, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Like,
yeah, that's my point. If they're losing their shit over this, like go ahead and just do a Twitter search for that shit. Last time that I had done it, which, admittedly there was like a trending thread about somebody seeing Pretty in Pink for the first time, I think it was.
the Richard Gere movie?
No, is it Pretty in Pink? No, it's 16 Candles.
I'm thinking of Pretty Woman.
Yeah, Pretty Woman also has some very funny moments that are kind of like, but there's a cut out there where they deep faked Willem Dafoe's face on,
Oh God.
God, why am I blanking on her name? God damn it.
On a 16 Candles person?
No, into Pretty Woman. I don't know why I'm blanking on her name. Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts?
Yeah,
Oh.
they deep faked his face onto Julia Roberts' character
Neat.
in that movie. So it's just him in a sexy red dress doing all the like cute laughing and shit when Richard Gere like snaps the case shut, but it's his face. It's pretty well done. I think I retweeted it. So it's actually kind of terrifying. But yeah. No, 16 Candles. Somebody saw 16 Candles for the first time, and it does not age well. I'll just say that.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, so I don't have a lot of, like, again, I don't think we have a lot of personal dog in the RE4 fight. I think some of the lines were not really necessary. I'll say that, I guess, if you want me to take anything on that. I find the irony of Facebook, trying to take moral high ground on something like hilarious.
Social media that was invented to rate your sexy classmates.
Mm-hmm. And all the shit they've been getting into the last week or two with all the shit that's coming out about them.
Yeah. God. I don't know. I don't really any moralizing from them on any subject. I don't really take to heart. Pretty much any corporation. Like if a corporation's going to go out of its way to, lecture me morally, I'm good. I don't need to hear it. They're full of shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's also very much none of this shit really matters too much because, again, it's a version of a game I'm never gonna own.
Yeah, it's a 16-year-old game.
Yeah, and
thank God they finally changed it. Because 16 years ago it was really fucking people up.
Right?
Dumb.
Yeah.
But speaking of shit that needs to change, you brought this up to me, and we in our first recording, because this is our second time recording, because the first recording corrupted, which is why this is not a video podcast this week. Um, in a weird way that I've never seen. But the first time you brought this up, it was pretty shocking. And I ended up looking into just kind of like what you were talking about last time. You were talking about how there's pockets of developers where there's sort of like a developer desert. And so there's only like 2 companies in a single area. And so if a dev wants to try and compete or go somewhere else, there's basically nowhere for them to go. But this is an interesting thing that not a lot of people are talking about, and we need Jason Schreier to talk about it. So why don't you introduce the topic?
So this is all about Metroid Dread and Mercury Steam. Metroid Dread, obviously a recent release this month. Very good game, very much worth it. Not talking about the fucking Twitter meme that was born about is it worth $60? It's a great game. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, is it as good as God of War?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Also coming to PC, announced today, whatever. I could not believe the number of people that were upset. Console fanboys, so stupid.
I don't know. Well, everybody that is gonna play it on console has played it on console.
Yeah. So the first thing that came out, what most people are familiar with, is the fact that there were apparently a bunch of people uncredited on the game. And Mercury Steam actually publicly came out with a response to this news story, saying that hey, as standard with our contract, you need to work on more. If you work less than 25% of a game's total development time, you're not on the credits unless you had like a very special contributing role that we felt needed to be shouted out, which is stupid because the game has been in development potentially up to 4 years.
4 years, yeah. I worked on it for a year, and I don't get to have my name in the credits. Oh man.
Yeah, so that's just incredibly stupid, and they're sort of like, well, whoa, what's the big deal? That's just terms of service, and it is kind of industry standard. It somewhat, that doesn't make it okay. What an asshole! You just come off looking like a fucking asshole.
Is it industry standard because there's money associated with crediting?
I mean, I don't think there's residuals associated with it, but I mean, it definitely can fuck your portfolio up, especially in an industry where people are constantly bouncing from studio to studio. Having your name accredited in, actual document accreditation probably goes a lot longer than just saying yeah, I worked on this game. Well, what'd you do? And well, I did this, but you didn't. It probably looks bad when you say well, why weren't you in the credits? But because I didn't work long. Why didn't you work long on the game? It kind of makes it sound like, oh, maybe you were a bad fit and they let you go. Maybe we shouldn't work with you if you're going to quit so suddenly on us too. Kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like it's a real dick move, and yeah, I don't feel Mercury Steam's response is anything other than tone deaf, but that's not even the worst of it, because for I'm going to try to pronounce this thing, Anait, 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 whatever games.com, Anait.com, Marta Trivy went in and talked to a bunch of programmers and artists who did work on the game, and they had a lot to say about working for Mercury Steam. And I mean, this is a long expose, on the whole development of Metroid Dread. And apparently it was a very chaotic, rough development. And a lot
took
of
4 fucking years for that game. Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of the chaotic, rough development came from the fact that of management and HR. The beginning of her article, talks about, the workers had expressed expressed complaints about lack of communication from the company regarding what they could expect for the future. We don't know how the project was going. We didn't know what happened next or if we were going to stay. Enric Alvarez, who one of the founders of Mercury Steam, trying to calm people down, made a video in which he literally said that the company had room for everyone. Everyone could stay if they wanted to, because the company was growing and a new project had arrived, was separate from Metroid Dread. Although the company's co-founder managed to calm things down, the calm didn't last long. Within a few months of the video shooting, Mercury Steam laid off all of the QA workers except for 2 people and a large number of animators and 3D modelers.
Wow.
Yeah, and in regarding, it was Project Huntress, the game known as Dread now, still had several months of development, also several internal, bunch of other shit crises to face as well. There's that's just the start of it. So that is the tip of this iceberg. Sometime between April and July, some representatives of Nintendo reviewed the project to put scissors to it because, as far as I know, we had far exceeded the scope. There were about 120 cinematics to do. It was too big. It was too big. Just too much. Like, so. But yeah, here's the crazy thing. This game was planned at one point to have twice as many bosses as it does, and twice as many cutscenes.
So 8 years later, it would have come out.
Yeah.
So yeah. I did a quick Google search, and I don't know necessarily the veracity of this, but apparently on smaller indie developers or indie companies, yes, there are royalties involved with crediting as like an incentive for staying with a project, possibly for less money. But even in this answer on like Quora, the guy was like, in 25 years of game development, I've never met anybody that made good money off of royalties. So
yeah,
I
can tell you one person who made good money off royalties: the guy who composed the James Bond theme.
Oh yeah,
he according to Grant Kirkhope, the guy made $5 million off of royalties off the sales of GoldenEye for N64. Just that game. That's such bullshit.
Royalties, baby, and they get taxed differently.
Yeah. So, I mean, to go into it further, there's one part of the article that touches on the fact that they call it teleworking, which is like the European name for work from home.
Yeah, telecommuting, teleworking. Yeah.
They said teleworking for the company was like not an option.
Yeah, this is a weird thing.
According to the program, the company promised to pay full salary to the workers for teleworking. However, a week later, they applied to the ERTE retroactively and tried not to have to pay what they were due as a percentage of the salary. In the end, we received the full salary because many colleagues had to protest to get it because Mercury Steam did not want to pay the 30% that belonged to them. Basically, okay, let me break that down for you. They promised the employees they'd still get their full salary working from home during COVID. And then they immediately applied to a European tax break for, oh, well, we can't pay our employees, yada, yada. Where they basically tried to like scum it out through a government program and claim they couldn't pay people and had to take, government money or whatever. Word of that got down to the employees, who then, staged an internal protest to make sure they get their money.
Yeah, so here's the thing about that. Wouldn't they have already been getting paid? Like, how would they not, if they were still working on the game, how would they not have had the money to pay their employees all of a sudden? Well, it's not like being in the office was earning the company money.
Right. Well, I think the idea is that, like, once everyone's at home, they'll just sit there and say, like, okay, we got hit with COVID, guys. Sorry, we're not going to be able to pay you what we could, even though they went and applied for, government assistance to make sure they still had money.
It's sort of crazy to me that, like, a company thought they were going to get well, I guess companies do get away with shit like that all the time.
Oh, yeah. When they returned to the office, they installed anti-COVID measures, but I don't think they did it correctly. The sites were kept as they were, but screens were installed on the sites. So they just put little screens between cubicles. Even so, we were very close to the partner in front and without any glass. So, like, if you're sitting right in front across from someone, there was nothing between your monitor and theirs. That was not safe. In addition, they took away the microwaves, and we could not eat hot food in the office because they said they did not trust us to clean them. It's always the same. They never trusted us. Lovely.
Good fucking God.
So here's another thing, and this was just said from people online who knew who were friends of some of these people and like talked about in the article. They said that Nintendo, because some people are laying all the way on Mercury Steam and saying, why didn't Nintendo step in? Nintendo should step in and do something. And some people in Spain were saying that Nintendo was the one who wouldn't let them work from home because Nintendo did not trust them
To not
with the
leak shit.
project. They didn't want the project getting leaked, so apparently it
Wow.
was Nintendo that said you can't take Switch dev kits home. You can't work from this from home. Now this is where I'm like, look, I don't want to say this is true or not. I have no idea. This is something that has to be done through an actual proper investigation, and I think it's worth looking into. No one's talking about it, and I don't get it why. Because if that were true, I find that incredibly shitty on Nintendo's part, and I find it incredibly xenophobic from NCL because I know for a fact that Monolith Soft in Tokyo did work from home, converted to work from home, and he's even talked about doing permanent work from home for some employees. And Tokyo is hundreds of miles away from Kyoto, so it's not like, oh well, we're in the same building, we're in the same office. It's like, no, they're a good amount of distance apart. But I mean, how the fuck is it okay for Monolith Soft, who's working on Zelda, to do work from home? You know, you're not afraid of them leaking shit, but you're afraid of
Well,
Mercury Steam in Spain leaking shit.
unless there was like a mandate in Tokyo where Nintendo didn't
Right.
have a choice.
So that
Yeah.
that is where I go, okay, as you brought stuff on our first recording, I'm like, okay, that's true. That's a good point. But I still feel it stands like, okay, even if it was just, hey, Nintendo was kind of forced to comply with this because of Tokyo laws and regulations, why the fuck would Nintendo still be insistent on it? Like, that's just a weird like just cloud of mistrust over Mercury Steam. Like, well, we're gonna, because it is work for hire. The Nintendo does not own Mercury Steam. So I could, you could argue that like it's not a xenophobic thing. It's just, it's just putting, a safety measure in place because they are not a company that works for you outright. They are not Nintendo employees. So of course you have to take a little extra precaution. I still find that bullshit because it's like, yeah, but it's fucking COVID. It's a global pandemic. Millions of people have fucking died from this shit. Don't be so fucking like concerned about, oh fucking god, a 2D Metroid was somehow going to leak a year early. That would be the worst fucking thing ever. I'd rather these people get fucking sick and possibly die than leak this fucking 2D Metroid game. As good as the game is, like it would not have been the end of the fucking world if Metroid Dread leaked a year in advance.
Have they ever proven that leaks actually hurt a game? Only if the game's gonna suck, right?
Yeah, if word gets out that a game is a dumpster fire, it certainly can hurt it. Like not a great example because like it had really good first month sales, but RE6, according to people I knew at Capcom at the time, they said like the sales plateaued really hard. Like it sold great that first month and then it fucking flatlined after that. And I'm like, yeah, because word of mouth got out. Like the game was only like, it's weird because over time as they started selling it like super cheap, and in re-releases and in bundles, it started to really pick up steam again sales wise. I guess
Because
you could
it's worth
argue.
$20.
I think, yeah, I was just about to say, like, you could argue RE6 is probably worth $20 or $15 or whatever, right?
I
Um,
I would argue even that if you're playing it co-op, you're gonna have a good time. It's not a great game, but you're gonna have a good time
at
probably.
least some of the campaigns will probably still have fun in co-op, sure.
Yeah, I think you're gonna
Um,
have a good time. Like I only played it co-op and I had a good time. Like I couldn't
yeah, same with me.
understand why people were hating on it as much until I played, like I think I played the first section um alone, and in single player the game's much worse. But I would argue that's the same thing about 5.
Yeah, 5 has the same problem, honestly.
5 was
Um,
absolute balls alone, but a great game if you're playing co-op,
yeah,
as God
yeah.
intended.
So yeah, and but yeah, getting back to Metroid, this whole thing, there's more to. I'm not gonna like tell you everything that's in the article. ANAITgames.com, Anit Games. You should definitely check out the article. It is in Spanish, but you can use Deep L translator if you want. If you're like us and you live in SoCal, you can consult many people who can read
Tons and tons,
Spanish.
yeah.
You can consult people who can read Spanish very easily. If you want to like double check and verify, the article yourself. But it's weird that very few people are talking about this. And when I brought it up, some people were like, "Oh, well, this is why Nintendo should buy Mercury Steam, because then they can clean house." So I'm like, why do you want to buy a house that's on fire?
Yeah,
You know, like
a shit heap.
like that doesn't seem like a very incentive for me. The other thing too is that Nintendo, every company hates controversy, but Nintendo really hates controversy. Like really, really, really hates this.
Yeah, they're terrified of it. They're not just averse to it; they're terrified of it.
And honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if there was some sort of like downplaying of this, because Nintendo really probably doesn't want this story to get any more publicity than it did. Because it's kind of only
we need is Jason. We need sweet Jason Schreier. Jason Schreier, please
Jason.
get in there.
Yeah, someone does. If a big, because I think he works for Bloomberg, someone like that really gets in there and a good American publisher, like a big one, I think that would really go a long way towards helping this. It's gonna fuck Mercury Steam over, but from the sounds of it, it sounds like they kind of need it. And the reason, okay, so why is Mercury Steam such a dumpster fire? And it actually comes down to a similar problem that you kind of already mentioned before. In Spain, there's very few options for game development. There's Tequila Works, there's Mercury Steam, and I can't even think of another one.
In Spain in general, from what I have been told, jobs in general are hard to come by. There's just like not a ton of options in Spain right now, apparently at all.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you're in a niche market, like an even more niche market. Apparently, it's just like real rough.
Yeah.
Granted, that was told to me by a Spaniard who moved here to work in film, so that's years ago now. But apparently, that's just like it's a point of contention, is that like there's not a ton of jobs in Spain in general. Like there's a lot of competition, so it means that there's a lot of abuse. They can get away with a lot just naturally. Bosses are used to that.
It's one of those things where it's like they know you've got nowhere else to go, so you'll accept, not only the working conditions, but you'll accept the low pay, because apparently people are paid way under what their skill set is valued at.
Oh hell yeah! Well, I mean, look at what's happening here. The Great Resignation. 2.9 million people resigned in August. And the free market, the supply is down on employees, and so there's strikes and all sorts of shit all over the place, and companies are basically like, why are they doing this to us? Economics, bitch.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe here's a fun statistic. I don't know if it's true or not, but I read a statistic that that people calculated the amount of gold in Smog's cave, in the Misty Mountain. They calculated the weight of the gold and calculated how much that would be worth in today's value, right?
At least losing their virginities.
What? I don't even understand that.
Well, it would be. I mean, they did all those calculations, and it would be at least enough money for them to finally lose their virginities. Doing those calculations, get the fuck out of here. What are you wasting your time for? Go touch grass.
Sure, I'm sure, but what my point is that I forget the number, but of billions of money that Smog is sitting on in the value of gold. Gold's valued in its weight, and purity. And Smog would be the 15th richest person in America.
Yeah.
That mountain of fucking gold. There are 14 people who have more money than in the entire Misty Mountain that Smog was sitting on. In gold. So it's kind of like, if they're wondering why are people so upset, and it's like, well, maybe because like there's dozens of people that have more money than they'll ever know what to do with, and in fact you could take billions away from some of these top earners and they wouldn't even know it.
Imagine having that kind of freedom.
Just you've lost X amount of billions of dollars, and you have no way of even knowing that, because it would affect your life in there's no fucking way nothing about your life would change. Nothing would be gone or missing. You wouldn't have to sell anything off. You wouldn't have to like make any adjustments. Like your life you're just so rich that there's no way that even extravagant living conditions can you fucking spend this much money.
Yeah, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Period.
Gee, I wonder I wonder why people are that upset. But speaking of money, here's this to me was like one of the craziest parts of this story with Mercury Steam is one of the programmers was talking about they don't keep track of what they pay. I think they pay depending on how well people like them because there is no rank by position or department or anything like that. This former programmer added when he was talking about HR resource or human resources management. They don't have a career plan. Scales in the company depend on how well you get along with Jose Luis Marquez, the creative director of Metroid Dread, or Heinrich, the other co-founder of Mercury Steam. Depending on the project, and depending on the project you are on, and if you don't accept, what they propose for you, for example, in relation to salary, they take it as an attack. They do not want to discuss salaries, and I know of colleagues who were fired for that. They were called directly to sign, and that's it, without refuting or anything. So, yes, to reiterate, people's salaries sometimes are dependent on how well they get along with the co-founders of Mercury Steam. And they
Now,
are
I don't
very
want to say anything too controversial here, but I would argue that that is true literally everywhere. It's just that there they were out in the open about it.
well. Also, they were apparently very, very hostile towards anyone openly discussing their salaries with other colleagues. Like they do not talk about how much you make with other people there.
Yeah, people still get kind of weird, like, because I'll openly talk about rates. Like, I don't
Mhm.
hide that shit anymore at all. Because that's how I found out I was getting paid real bad.
Mhm. But I mean,
If you're ever at a job and they're like, don't talk about money, or they try to taboo money, you're getting fucked.
yeah, like
For sure.
what are you hiding there? Like,
Yeah,
when
either you're getting fucked or someone next to you is getting fucked real hard.
mm-hmm. So that just kind of makes them come off looking like real big assholes because it's not even about like skill; it's about like how well do you get along with this dickhead? Like,
Yeah.
like what the fuck? This that is in the article that is alleged to a former programmer from Mercury Steam. And again, I wish it was more than just this one article, from Spain that was really covering this. And the reason why you don't hear about this a lot, again, going back to the fact that most people do not want to speak out about this because they know it's suicide for their career. Because how many countries in Europe speak Spanish?
Yeah,
Like,
you're done.
yeah, you're done. You have nowhere else to go, kind of thing. So,
I mean, in their
uh,
defense, a lot of Spanish people speak wonderful English. So maybe they
sure,
can.
but it's like your home country. You'd have to go and move to a foreign. They'd have to deal with all that, like work visas and shit like that, just to go somewhere else. So it's a real bad shit show. I feel. And do I have real? Here's the frustrating part for me is I don't have a great solution for this or what to do about this other than um
Unionize?
there you go, bingo. The game industry kind of needed to unionize yesterday or a few years ago
Oh, there's
because
my dog.
this is just just another nail in the coffin or another whatever note on the board, what have you. Like I like Metroid Dread. I think Metroid Dread is a good game. This is not a boycott Metroid Dread podcast at all. At all. Because again, at the end of the day, Metroid Dread is a great game that Nintendo contracted another company to do for them. And the project turned out well. I don't think a boycott for Metroid Dread would do anything. All it would do is send the wrong message. All a boycott for Metroid Dread would do is tell Nintendo that people don't like Metroid and don't want any more Metroids or 2D Metroids. The game's already selling well from what early indicators we have. So
Yeah,
that's
and you're
really not even.
also, if you boycott Metroid Dread, it's not the owners of this company that are going to get hurt. They'll just go start a new
Yeah,
company.
they'll start a new company or whatever. Like, and it's Nintendo that'll take the wrong idea here. So this is not a boycott Metroid Dread at all. In fact, I promote Metroid Dread. I say you should play Metroid Dread. I think it's a great game. If you're a Switch owner, it's definitely one of the best games to come out this year. So get Metroid Dread. But I don't think that should stop us or anyone from pointing out when someone's fucking up, when someone's, doing shit they shouldn't be doing. These employees should not be working under these conditions. This shit should not be fucking happening. There should not be this cloud of disgust, I would say, hanging over the development of the project. Like, I'm no fan of Mercury Steam. Again, this is all alleged shit. I'm not in Spain. I don't speak Spanish. I'm not there. I wasn't there for the development of this project.
Yeah, I
But
mean it's alleged, but is any of it shocking? Is any of it like there's no way that's true?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tale as old as time at this point. And there's multiple people who were speaking, former employees speaking on this article. So
I feel
to
like our
me,
generation's entire lives is basically just finding out how full of shit every fucking expectation is.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want things to be better. I think I would love for shit to get in order there. I don't really know how you do that, because the thing is when you've run your company for so long by being a distrustful asshole, as alleged in this article, and frankly, the way they responded to the accreditation thing, which they did publicly respond to, the way they responded to that all kind of paints the picture right there. Like, these guys are assholes. They don't even think they did anything wrong. They don't even see the problem with not crediting people who worked for 8 months or more on the project. So
Yeah, that's it's pretty wild to me. I mean, the thing is you're gonna. I was talking about this the other day, where it's just like our generation is basically going to confront all this stuff, and ideally we'll do something about it. We'll never benefit from it, so we're all going to die young because we're fucking doing all these fights, and like Gen Z and whatever fucking generation they want to name them after them are going to have like a golden period like boomers did, because we did the whole fighting, and then it's just going to start over again. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard not to feel like it's all futile. But I do agree with you. I think that something should be done, and working.
yeah, and
the environment for making games has been bad for pretty much the entire time that making games has been a career. It's the same thing with the whole IATSE strike that's going on, or well, it's got postponed, but like the contract that they propose and stuff, they're still basically saying like it's going to be 15-hour days, and it's like there's just no reason in the modern world that you have to do that.
yeah,
it's just like it's choosing suffering, I guess. I don't really. I wish I could suggest something other than just being like unionize, because unionization is like an extremely painful process. It costs the people who unionize. It costs them a lot long before it ever benefits them, and it usually just benefits the people after them.
And to get a little political here, like, to me, I'm with you on this. Like, they kind of needed to unionize, but when it comes to this point, like, why do they need to unionize? Because management has completely failed their employees. That is
totally
to me,
lost it.
That's what a union is. A union is an example, or is a telltale sign of a failure of management. You have failed to properly and safely employ, your workers at your company. So now they are forced to unionize because you can't provide a decent working condition or decent living for these people, and that's why they have to go to this measure.
Well, yeah, I mean, happy people don't unionize.
Well-run companies don't need to.
Yeah, no one's freaking out. If they're being treated well and paid well and stuff. So
yeah. Like, if the upper management is doing their fucking job correctly, they're like, it won't need to come to this. But it came to this a long time ago, I feel, with the video game industry. And this is just another in a string of long-running issues that still have not been addressed. Things are still not really getting much better. But, to silver line this, though, if there is any silver lining, is like, we did see the rise of indies, small indie developers, or just individuals. And in companies that, there are a few companies where I do feel like it's run really well, and you do hear people like brag about, I love working for this company, yada yada. I didn't do any crunch. I didn't have to deal with any of this shit, whatever. And those companies usually come from people whose founders were
Yeah.
were developers in the beginning. Like they are people who worked in the trenches, and not for a short amount of time, but really kind of like, started from the bottom and worked their way
Well,
up.
it's always your favorite thing about Iwata, right? Is that he started as a developer, and then
Yep.
when it came time to square off with fucking investors who wanted him to lay off everybody, famously he was like, "No, I'll take a pay cut. I can't expect these people to make world-class games if they're constantly worried about their jobs."
Yep.
You know, um,
Exactly.
I I think that it's one of the reasons Iwata was rare. Um, I think some of his fuck ups get held against him, like that fuck up wouldn't have happened if he would have been more heartless.
Yeah,
The
and
Wii
people
U and
like
shit.
what the fuck was his name? Michael Pachter. Remember him? I sure don't.
I
Um,
don't.
he he kept saying that Iwata's leadership was terrible for the company, yada yada. Um, and it's like, even if Wii U was a mistake for multiple reasons, like I'd still I still would rather Nintendo have, faltered under that leadership than thrived off of shitty leadership.
Oh yeah. Um, I think that's one thing that again, it's a generational difference. Um, is
I
maybe
mean,
it's not true. This might not be true.
the games were still great on Wii U. Like the console was overpriced, and it was had a multitude of like little nitpicky issues, but Nintendo was still making some of the best fucking games ever on the Wii U. So it's like it's not even about. I don't want people to think, oh, well, you're just fanboying for Nintendo, or like you'll just accept any problem they have. I'm like, no, like if they make great games, it doesn't fucking matter. What about the issues the system might have? Like we're all fucking sick and tired of the Switch being so underpowered, but it still makes great fucking games. So
Yeah, I think that's one thing
if
about like PC gaming that I really like is that indie developers can build for PC out the gate,
Mhm.
right? You don't need a fucking dev kit.
Yes,
It democratizes and makes it easier. It's just the problem. Well, PC gaming is becoming more and more popular now. Um, I kind of
yeah.
wonder if in the next 10 years it'll grow to really rival console gaming.
Uh,
Um,
I mean, it already is rivaling in a way. I just feel that like the one thing that console still has is that it's convenience. And it's again, it's a whole nother argument. It's again why I don't think VR has taken off. To circle back to RE before VR, it's just really convenient. You just have this system, you plug it into your TV, and it's good to go. You never have to worry about compatibility. There's no weird little issues because you have this driver or that driver or whatever. Like everything is just set to go. It's a set box top. It's set hardware specifications. So when someone makes a game for the system, they're making it to work the same on every system. um,
oh yeah, I agree with that. I
so
think
it's
as working from
convenience. The convenience of a console will always be its greatest asset, regardless of any other thing. Just the convenience of it is what's going to keep consoles going. Like I
yeah,
don't think you're
it,
like it.
as we move more towards working remotely and people are having to make workstations at home and have to have more and more powerful, you know, PCs or laptops at home. And then on top of that, as generations progress and we're more and more, you know, tech literate, I think that's going to become less of a problem, right?
Mhm.
Um, Consoles don't necessarily have to, or you don't necessarily need extra convenience if everybody speaks the tech language. If everybody understands how a PC runs because they've been using it since they were fucking 5, like they're not necessarily that concerned about the convenience of a console. Which is why I think in the next 10 years it really becomes like a real contender, especially cuz Game Pass.
Yeah.
Things like Game Pass means that those games that you used to only be able to get if you owned a console, now you don't need to do it and you get to play in some cases better versions.
Hmm.
So I do think that's it's an
There is another danger to Game Pass that we've talked about, and it's probably a discussion for another time. But just Game Pass is leading into that area of like what every entertainment sector wants. They don't want you to own products anymore.
Yeah,
They
no,
want,
that's true.
they want you to subscribe to a service, and once you unsubscribe from that service, you lose access to all that shit immediately.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely agree that that is a danger. I think that consoles are going to go that way anyway,
oh, they are.
possibly
Even
by
if
next generation.
it wasn't popular, because the thing is, and you can look at it like Microsoft, floundered last generation, and they kept Game Pass going. They kept pushing, kept Game Pass alive. Not because really believed in it. It's because that's what they want. They want people on a subscription service. Like if Game Pass, if something like Game Pass didn't have a dystopian like future that every entertainment industry wants, they would have dumped the project like Microsoft's dumped many projects, like Google's dumped even more projects. Like
Yeah.
there's a reason they're sticking by their guns with Game Pass, and it's because that's what everyone wants. Everyone, Sony, Microsoft, yes, Nintendo. The Nintendo Switch Online is nothing but the same fucking thing as Game Pass. It is just Game Pass for old shit. That's all it is.
For Game Pass for old shit. It's Sewer Pass.
It's classic Game Pass. I don't know, but I'm right. I'm right. Like, oh, and yeah, there's the whole issue about how much money it costs for N64, and Genesis expansion, but whatever. Like, point is that this is what everyone wants. You have access to all these games. You lose that access when you stop paying them an annual fee.
Yeah, no, it's that's I think it's going to be a bummer, but I think it is the future, period. That's how it's going to be. And it'll have like a democratizing effect too, in a sense. Where you'll be able to access more games than you were ever able to afford before.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think, you're going to be locked into a service, which,
It's what,
I don't.
it's what they want.
Yeah,
I mean, the online basically already was locking you into an annual service that you shouldn't be having to pay for online, just straight online gameplay, because that shit it's free on PC still. It was free on PS3, all the way back then. Like Microsoft started the whole pay for online gameplay, and it stuck with it, and now everyone does it.
Yep.
Game Pass is next.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, there's good and bad things to it. It's going to be cheaper than ever to pursue your passions. Your hobby of playing a new game every month is much easier and more affordable over time doing it this way, basically. Is it going to make game development more stable? I argue also yes. So, you have more. There's definite benefits to it, but I don't know that I would argue that it's dystopian, but it definitely has downsides.
It could be. You could get there. You can very clearly see where this could go bad.
And probably will.
Yeah, probably will.
On that note, we have patrons to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames Dude of the Week was Saruman209, and our producers for this episode are The Arnett, Barcon345, Scrunami, Top 35, HyperViper89, Hockey Kong 64, Ziggy Z, Online Persona, and Miles XVS. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.